It is hard enough to get a bite, let alone a quality bite. We don't want to lose that fish because of our drag. I'm pretty passionate about setting the drag for one specific reason, because I have messed it up so many times, especially on lures with treble hooks. So I want to go over some basics of setting the drag today. So if you've had this problem, or maybe you go into some waters where there's some big fish, you can land that new personal best. Now, the first thing to talk about is that bass anglers set the drag a little bit more by feel, or a lot more by feel, than let's say saltwater anglers. Saltwater anglers are very specific about getting their drag set perfectly because they have the chance for catching some monster-sized fish. So if they have 30-pound line, they want to get it set right around, 6 pounds or so, and they'll use a scale or maybe a 6-pound weight to put on the end of the line, but they're very specific about it. With bass anglers, we don't quite get into that much detail, but we're not dealing with fish like that either. But there are a few basics that we need to make sure that we go over to get this drag set properly. Now, the first thing to consider is the fish in the place that you're going to go to. Up here where I'm at in Northern Illinois, I'm not going to catch a 15-pound largemouth bass. If I did, I would be absolutely shocked. We catch lots of them in that 4 to 5, and a 6-pounder is a really good fish on a lot of the lakes that I have right here. Well, when I took a recent trip to Florida, I messed it up. Down there, you have the potential for double-digit fish, and I paid the price because I didn't think about what the potential in the waters were. So we're going to cover this stuff in detail, so hopefully you don't have that same problem and make the same mistakes that I did. Now, the first drag setting I want to talk about is for your traditional big, heavy flipping hooks. This could go for like a Texas rig like this, or on your jigs, anytime where you've got this big, heavy wire hook. Most bass anglers will go ahead and set that drag really tight. But the thought process behind cranking the drag down on a big heavy wire hook on your jigs and Texas rigs is because where you are fishing these is oftentimes in super thick heavy cover. If you have too much slip, that head of that fish is going to turn and get buried up in that cover and come off. So we want to transfer all that energy right to the hook set. This single hook penetrates really well, get the head of that fish coming towards us and out of that cover. That's that thought process behind really cranking that drag down on these types of hooks. Now, the next one that we get into is when we're talking about light wire hooks. So your single hooks, like on a Ned rig or even some Nico rigs, that type of stuff, but you really, really light wire hooks. I like to have my drag set on those where on the hook set there's a little bit of slippage, okay? Those light wire hooks, one, bend easily or easier than obviously a heavy wire hook, and then also the really tiny ones like in your Ned rigs, those can bust. I have broken those before, had nice smallmouth, saw it, going up and takes that Ned rig in some really clear water, wham! Crazy me, I set the hook like I was fishing a jig, boom, snapped the hook right at the bend on those Ned rigs. So on those really, really light wire hooks, I like to have a little bit of slippage on the hook set. Not so much I can't get penetration, but just enough to make sure I don't straighten or, hinder that hook in any way whatsoever. Remember, the idea of landing a fish is all about pressure, maintaining pressure. That fish doesn't always have to be coming towards us. It can be running away from us, but we need to maintain pressure, and that's the key with a drag setting. Now, the last one that we need to get into is when we're talking about with your treble hooks. So this would be on your crankbaits, your jerk baits, that type of stuff. And this is where most anglers have the most difficulty, is getting a drag set with these. I like to think about a treble hook in this manner. Is a treble hook, in my opinion, more often grabs the fish as opposed to penetrates like a single hook would. Now, yes, we can get penetration past the barb, and obviously that happens, but Treble hooks are more of a grabbing type of a hook. And these even, oftentimes will hook one up on a single hook on a treble. Like they'll just swat at it and they'll get just one of these single hooks. So if you look at a single hook on a treble, that is not very big. It's not super strong like on your flipping hook, and these will straighten out or pull off and come unbuttoned. So on your crankbaits and your jerkbaits, I like to have my drag set about like this. It doesn't take much effort and I can pull that line off of there. I still have enough where I can get the fish to grab that hook and, and get some penetration to it. But if you have it too tight, treble hooks are notorious for coming off, especially when that bass gets up towards the boat and then all of a sudden does a nosedive down and your rod bends over. Man, I have lost some good fish that way because I didn't take the time right here to deal with it. Now, of course, you can adjust the drag in the middle of the fight for the fish, but oftentimes we are making large adjustments because we're in the moment. The adrenaline has us in the moment. So with your crankbaits, with your jerkbaits, make sure that you can peel some line off of there. And remember, the goal is to maintain pressure. Crankbait rods often are composite. They have a whole lot more give to them. That is going to help as well to keep that fish from throwing that hook. But like I said in the beginning, we work so hard to get that bite and really hard to get a big bite. We don't want to lose it on a good fish. And those big fish, and I'm talking, 5, 6 pounds plus, they're really strong and they can really, really pull. If you would like to watch a video about how different types of plastics for floating worms affect the worm in your presentation, go ahead and check this one out right here, and make sure to go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.